10 local Chrysler car dealerships are among the nearly 800 dealerships nationally being shut down by Chrysler.
People who were thinking about buying a car are now racing to dealerships, trying to get their deals done quickly.
Used car prices are finally going down. They have been inflated for years.
Stop. The biggest car market crash in history is about to hit, and if you're thinking of buying or selling a car in the next 6 months, this could either save you thousands or cost you everything. Right now, while you're watching this video, over 4.7 million new cars are sitting unsold on dealer lots across America. Not for days or weeks. We're talking 200+ days of nobody even looking at them. But here's what nobody saw coming. This isn't just about too many cars. This is about the complete collapse of how Americans buy, finance, and own vehicles. Meet Jennifer, a nurse from Phoenix who thought she was being smart by waiting for car prices to drop. Last month, she watched a 2023 Honda Accord fall from $32,000 to $28,000 to $24,000 in just 8 weeks. She's still waiting for it to hit $20,000, but Jennifer doesn't know what's really happening behind those falling prices. Because hidden beneath this inventory crisis is a financial time bomb that's about to explode. Dealers are bleeding $47 per day per vehicle in interest costs. Banks are tightening auto loans so severely that customers with 720 credit scores are getting rejected. And manufacturers. They're quietly preparing for something that hasn't happened since the Great Depression. But here's the part that should terrify every car owner in America. This crash will create two types of people: those who see it coming and position themselves to profit, and those who get crushed by the financial avalanche they never saw coming. The question isn't whether the biggest car market crash in history will happen. It's whether you'll be ready when it destroys everything you thought you knew about buying and owning cars. Right now, across America, there are more unsold cars sitting on dealer lots than at any point in modern history. And the numbers are so catastrophic that industry insiders are calling it the Great Automotive Reset. We're not talking about a few extra cars here and there. We're talking about 4.7 million vehicles, enough cars to fill every parking space in Manhattan 52 times over. These aren't just sitting for a few weeks. The average days on lot has exploded to 147 days, with some vehicles approaching 300 days without a single serious buyer. Every single day, dealers are hemorrhaging money on floor plan interest. Here's the brutal math. A $35,000 vehicle costs dealers approximately $47 daily in interest charges. Multiply that by millions of vehicles, and you're looking at over $220 million bleeding from dealer bank accounts every single day. A Ford dealer in Texas told me yesterday, "I've got 267 vehicles on my lot right now. My daily floor plan interest is $12,549. That's $376,000 per month just to store cars nobody wants. I haven't made a profit in 9 months, and my credit line is maxed out." 4.7 million vehicles sitting unsold. $220 million bleeding daily. But this inventory apocalypse is just the symptom. The real disease is something far more sinister. While dealers drown in unsold inventory, something even more catastrophic is happening. Vehicle values are collapsing so fast that millions of car owners are about to discover they owe more on their loans than their cars will ever be worth again. This isn't a gradual decline. This is a financial avalanche that's burying car owners under mountains of negative equity they never saw coming. Used car values have dropped 28% in the last 18 months, but wholesale auction prices, what dealers actually pay, have cratered by 42%. A 2021 Silverado that sold for $48,000 at auction last year is now bringing $28,000. That's $20,000 in value that simply vanished into thin air. Jennifer from Arizona learned this lesson the hard way. I tried to trade my 2021 Tahoe last month. I owed $54,000 on the loan. 3 dealers offered me $32,000 for trade-in. I'm stuck with a $22,000 loss if I want to get out of this truck. I feel like I've been financially mugged. But here's the terrifying part. Retail prices haven't caught up to wholesale reality yet. Dealers are still trying to sell cars based on last year's values while knowing they can only get this year's prices at auction. The betrayal emotion. Customers who thought they were making smart financial decisions are discovering they've been trapped in a rigged system. Values collapsing, negative equity exploding, customers trapped. But the price collapse is just setting the stage for the real catastrophe. While everyone focuses on inventory and pricing, the real bomb about to explode is in automotive lending. The credit crisis brewing beneath the surface will make the 2008 financial meltdown look like a practice round. Auto loan approval rates have plummeted from 87% pre-pandemic to just 58% today. But that's not the scary part. The scary part is what's happening to the loans that are getting approved. Average interest rates have exploded from 4.1% to 11.2% for prime borrowers, and subprime borrowers are seeing rates as high as 27.9%. A finance manager at a major dealership told me yesterday, "I'm seeing customers with 740 credit scores getting quoted 14% interest rates. 2 years ago, those same customers would have qualified for 2.9%. The lending market has completely frozen up. But here's the kicker. Even customers willing to pay these outrageous rates are getting rejected. Lenders are so spooked by the value collapse that they're rejecting loans on vehicles that might be worth less than the loan balance before the first payment is made, the systematic failure. The entire automotive financing system is built on the assumption that cars hold their value. When that assumption breaks, everything breaks. Lending frozen, repos exploding, credit scores destroyed. The credit crisis is about to lock millions of Americans out of car ownership permanently. While dealers bleed money on unsold inventory, the automotive manufacturers are facing their own existential crisis. Production lines are shutting down, workers are being laid off, and some of America's most iconic car companies are quietly preparing for bankruptcy. General Motors just announced the closure of 8 manufacturing facilities and the layoff of 22,000 workers. Ford is cutting production at 12 plants and offering buyouts to 31,000 employees. Stellantis is shutting down the Belvidere assembly plant indefinitely, putting 1,350 workers on the street. But here's what the press releases don't tell you. These aren't temporary shutdowns. These are permanent capacity reductions because manufacturers finally realize they've been building cars for a market that no longer exists. A GM plant manager in Michigan told me this week, "We built 2,800 trucks last month. Dealers ordered 650. We're literally manufacturing vehicles that nobody wants, storing them in overflow lots, and paying interest on inventory that may never sell. The math doesn't work anymore." The ripple effect is devastating. For every auto worker laid off, economists estimate that 8.2 additional jobs are lost in supporting industries. Tool shops, parts suppliers, trucking companies, entire supply chains are collapsing as production volumes crater. The domino effect: when manufacturers can't sell to dealers who can't sell to customers, the entire system collapses from the top down. Plants closing, workers laid off, supply chains collapsing, but the manufacturing meltdown is just accelerating the final phase of this crisis. While the industry burns around them, American consumers have made a decision that's sending shockwaves through corporate boardrooms. They're simply refusing to participate in the automotive market anymore. Vehicle sales have plummeted 34% year over year, but that number doesn't tell the whole story. The customers who are still buying are only purchasing the cheapest, most basic vehicles available. Premium trims, luxury features, and high-margin options are being completely ignored. A market research analyst told me yesterday, consumers have figured out that they've been getting ripped off. They're rejecting $75,000 pickup trucks, $55,000 SUVs, and anything with a payment over $450 per month. The industry built a business model around high-margin luxury sales, and customers are saying absolutely not. The psychological shift is profound. Consumers who used to see cars as status symbols now view them as transportation appliances. The emotional connection between Americans and their vehicles, the foundation of automotive marketing for 70 years, has been completely severed. Instead of buying new, consumers are flooding the used car market looking for older, simpler, more reliable vehicles. Cars from 2010 to 2015 are experiencing unprecedented demand because they offer modern safety without the complexity and cost of newer vehicles. The cultural revolution, when customers reject the entire premise of your business model, you're not facing competition. You're facing extinction. Consumers rejecting new cars, sales plummeting, cultural shift accelerating. The consumer rebellion is reshaping everything, but the government's response will make it catastrophically worse. Just when you thought the automotive crisis couldn't get worse, government intervention is about to make everything catastrophically worse. The regulatory response to this crisis will destroy what's left of the American automotive industry. Despite collapsing EV sales and massive dealer inventory, the government is doubling down on electric vehicle mandates. New regulations require 68% of all new vehicle sales to be electric by 2032, a target that's completely disconnected from consumer demand and market reality. An automotive policy analyst told me this week, the government is mandating manufacturers build cars that consumers don't want to buy. It's central planning at its worst, and it's going to destroy the industry faster than market forces alone ever could. The mandates are forcing manufacturers to continue investing in EV production capacity while losing money on every electric vehicle they sell. Meanwhile, tariffs on imported vehicles will increase prices by $8,000 to $12,000 per car while reducing quality and innovation. As manufacturers face bankruptcy, politicians are already discussing bailout packages. But these bailouts come with strings attached that will make companies even less competitive: EV production quotas, union employment levels, and domestic content requirements. The regulatory trap: every government intervention creates new problems that require more interventions, creating a vicious cycle that destroys the industry from within. EV mandates nobody wants, tariffs that raise prices, bailouts with impossible strings. Government intervention is accelerating the collapse instead of preventing it. The inventory crisis and credit freeze are creating something unprecedented in American automotive history: a wave of dealer bankruptcies so massive it will reshape entire communities across the country. Industry analysts estimate that 35% to 40% of car dealerships will close permanently within the next 24 months. These aren't just small mom-and-pop stores. Major metropolitan franchises with decades of history are preparing to shut down forever. A former Chevrolet dealer in Arizona told me this week, "Sold my franchise last month after 28 years in business. Couldn't afford to keep bleeding $11,000 daily on trucks nobody wants. My floor plan interest was higher than my mortgage payment. 28 years of building relationships gone." The human cost is staggering. Each dealership closure eliminates 50 to 75 jobs directly, plus hundreds more in supporting businesses. Parts suppliers, detail shops, towing companies, even local restaurants that depended on dealership customers' entire economic ecosystems are collapsing. But here's the cruel irony: the dealers who survive will have unprecedented pricing power. When half the dealers in your market disappear, the survivors can charge whatever they want because customers will have no alternatives. The consolidation trap: market crashes eliminate competition, creating oligopolies that hurt consumers long-term even more than the original crisis. Dealers going bankrupt, communities devastated, competition disappearing, but the dealer bankruptcy wave is just clearing the path for something much worse. As vehicle values collapse and credit tightens, we're witnessing the beginning of a repossession crisis that will make the 2008 housing foreclosure wave look small by comparison. Auto repossessions have increased 67% in the last 12 months. And that's before the real pain hits. When customers realize their vehicles are worth $20,000 less than they owe, many are simply walking away from their loans. Why make payments on a $55,000 loan for a truck worth $35,000? A repo company owner in Texas told me yesterday, "We're picking up 60% more vehicles than last year, and they're newer, more expensive vehicles. People are abandoning 2021 and 2022 cars because the negative equity is so massive. I've never seen anything like it in 15 years of business." The repos are creating a secondary flood of inventory. Banks are dumping repossessed vehicles at wholesale auctions for whatever they can get, further depressing values and creating more negative equity for remaining borrowers. It's a vicious cycle that feeds on itself. But here's what's really terrifying: the credit damage from these repos will lock millions of Americans out of car ownership for years. Once your car gets repossessed, good luck getting approved for another auto loan. The spiral effect: repos create more inventory, which lowers values, which creates more negative equity, which creates more repos, repos exploding, values crashing, credit destroyed. The repossession crisis is creating a permanent underclass of Americans who can't afford transportation. Here's the paradox that's about to devastate working-class Americans. Just when new cars become unaffordable, the used car market is about to disappear entirely. Cash for clunkers destroyed millions of affordable used cars in 2009. Now, The current crisis is finishing the job. Dealers can't afford to stock used cars when they're bleeding money on new inventory. Independent lots are going bankrupt. Even buy here, pay here dealers are shutting down because their collateral is worthless. A used car dealer in Ohio told me this week, "I bought a 2019 Camry at auction for $24,000 3 months ago. Today I can't get $18,000 for it retail. I'm losing money on every car I touch. This business model is broken. The cars that working families depend on, reliable vehicles under $15,000, are disappearing from the market. What's left is either too expensive or too unreliable for people who need transportation to get to work. This creates a transportation apartheid, wealthy Americans who can afford new cars, and everyone else who gets priced out of mobility entirely. When you can't afford a car, you can't get to work. When you can't get to work, you can't afford anything. The mobility crisis, transportation isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. When people can't afford cars, entire communities become economically isolated. Used cars disappearing, working families stranded, transportation apartheid emerging. But the used car desert is just the beginning of a much larger transformation. While everyone focuses on car sales and financing, the insurance industry is facing its own catastrophic crisis that will make car ownership impossible for millions of Americans. As vehicle values collapse, insurance companies are getting crushed by total loss claims where they pay out more than vehicles are worth. When a financed 2022 F-150 gets totaled, insurance pays the actual cash value, maybe $38,000, but the customer still owes $58,000 on the loan. That $20,000 gap is destroying both customers and insurance companies. An insurance adjuster in Florida told me yesterday, "I'm processing total loss claims where customers owe twice what their vehicles are worth." Without gap coverage, they're financially ruined. With gap coverage, we're paying claims that are bankrupting our company. But here's the real crisis. Insurance rates are exploding to cover these losses. Auto insurance premiums have increased 47% in the last 18 months, and they're about to get much worse. Some customers are paying more for insurance than their car payment. The result, millions of Americans are driving uninsured because they can't afford coverage. When uninsured drivers cause accidents, it creates a cascade of financial disasters that ripple through the entire system, the coverage crisis. When insurance becomes unaffordable, the entire concept of car ownership becomes financially impossible for working families, insurance rates exploding. Gap claims destroying companies, uninsured drivers everywhere. The insurance meltdown is making car ownership a luxury only the wealthy can afford. Generational wealth destroyed, middle class devastated, financial futures evaporated. But the wealth destruction is just preparing the ground for the final transformation. While American automotive companies collapse under the weight of this crisis, foreign manufacturers are positioning themselves to dominate what's left of the U.S. car market. Chinese automakers, who were barely on America's radar 2 years ago, are now preparing massive expansions into the U.S. market. They're offering electric vehicles at prices that make American EVs look like luxury items. $25,000 for cars that American companies can't build profitably for under $45,000. An automotive trade analyst told me this week, Chinese manufacturers didn't overbuild capacity like American companies. They didn't get trapped by union contracts or legacy costs. While Ford and GM are cutting production, BYD and Geely are planning U.S. factories. But it's not just Chinese companies. Hyundai, Kia, and even European manufacturers are gaining massive market share. As American brands struggle, they focused on building reliable, affordable vehicles, while American companies chased high-margin luxury trucks that nobody wants anymore. The irony is devastating. American automotive companies abandoned the affordable car market to chase profits, and now foreign competitors are taking over the entire market by offering what American companies refused to build. The strategic failure. When you abandon market segments to chase short-term profits, competitors will fill the void and eventually dominate everything. Chinese expansion, foreign domination, American retreat. The car market crash is accelerating the foreign takeover of American automotive manufacturing. Autonomous vehicles, subscription services, and mobility platforms are becoming mainstream years ahead of schedule. When car ownership becomes unaffordable, consumers embrace alternatives they previously rejected. Ride-sharing usage has exploded 340% in markets where car prices have collapsed most severely. Autonomous vehicle testing is accelerating because companies see massive demand for alternatives to ownership. A mobility startup CEO told me yesterday, The car market crash is our best marketing campaign. Customers who would never consider giving up car ownership are now signing up for our subscription service because it's literally half the cost of owning a vehicle. Technology companies like Apple, Google, and Amazon are accelerating their automotive investments because they see the traditional industry collapsing. They're not trying to build better cars. They're trying to eliminate the need for individual car ownership entirely. The shift is happening faster than anyone predicted. Autonomous ride-sharing fleets, subscription vehicle services, and integrated mobility platforms are moving from experimental to essential as traditional car ownership becomes financially impossible. The disruption acceleration. Market crashes don't just destroy existing businesses, they accelerate the adoption of replacement technologies, autonomous vehicles accelerating, subscription services exploding, tech giants investing. The car market crash is fast-forwarding us into a post-ownership transportation future. We've reached the point where this crisis becomes irreversible. The automotive industry, as Americans have known it for over a century, is about to disappear forever, and what replaces it will be unrecognizable. The convergence is complete. Inventory apocalypse, price collapse, credit freeze, manufacturing shutdown, dealer bankruptcies, consumer rebellion, and government intervention failure. Each crisis feeds the others, creating a downward spiral that no amount of money or policy can stop. A former automotive CEO told me yesterday, "I've been in this industry for 40 years. I've seen recessions, oil crises, financial meltdowns. This is different. This isn't a cycle. This is the end of an era." The industry that emerges from this collapse won't be the automotive industry anymore. The tipping point has passed. Too many dealers have closed, too many customers have been priced out, too many manufacturers have cut production, too many jobs have been lost. The infrastructure that supported mass car ownership in America is being dismantled in real time. The finality? Some changes can be reversed. Some markets recover. But when an entire industry's business model becomes obsolete, there's no going back to the way things were. The point of no return has been crossed. The automotive industry is dying, and what comes next will reshape American society forever. If you're watching this video, you're among the first to understand what's really happening. That knowledge gives you a massive advantage. If you act on it, if you own a car, understand that its value will continue declining rapidly. If you're thinking about selling, do it now before values drop further. If you're keeping it, prepare for much higher insurance and maintenance costs as the support infrastructure disappears. If you're thinking about buying, wait. Prices will drop much further as the crisis deepens. When you do buy, focus on simple, reliable vehicles that any mechanic can service. Avoid anything complex, electric, or dependent on dealer networks that might not exist in 5 years. If you work in automotive, start planning your transition now. The jobs that exist today won't exist tomorrow. Look for opportunities in the mobility services, logistics, and technology companies that will replace traditional automotive businesses. A career counselor specializing in automotive transitions told me this week, "The smart workers are already retraining for jobs in the post-automotive economy. The ones who wait will be competing with millions of others for fewer opportunities." The preparation advantage. The people who see this crisis coming and prepare for it will thrive. The ones who don't will be crushed by changes they never saw coming. Knowledge is power, but only if you act on it. The biggest car market crash in history is here. Will you be ready? This isn't just another market downturn that will recover in a few years. This is the permanent transformation of American transportation, and most people have no idea it's happening. The signs are everywhere if you know how to read them. Empty dealer lots, desperate financing offers, massive layoffs, government bailout discussions, foreign competitors gaining ground, technology companies investing billions in mobility alternatives. But here's what should really concern you. The speed of this collapse is accelerating. Changes that experts predicted would take 10 to 15 years are happening in 10 to 15 months. The automotive industry is experiencing the fastest disruption in modern economic history. An economic historian told me yesterday, "We're witnessing a transformation as significant as the shift from horses to automobiles 120 years ago. Except this time, it's happening in years instead of decades, and most people don't realize their entire way of life is about to change." Subscribe now so you don't miss the next wave of this crisis. The landscape is changing daily, and the people who stay informed will be the ones who survive and thrive in the new transportation economy. The automotive age is ending. The mobility age is beginning. The only question is whether you'll be prepared for what comes next. The biggest car market crash in history isn't coming. It's here, and it's worse than we anticipated. 20 years from now, explaining car dealerships to your children will be like explaining Blockbuster video stores. You had to drive to a physical location, negotiate with salespeople, and hope they had what you wanted. It will sound as primitive as it actually was. The world that emerges from this crash will be radically different. Transportation will be a service, not a product. Mobility will be accessed, not owned. The infrastructure built around car ownership, parking lots, gas stations, repair shops, will be repurposed for other uses. Cities will reclaim thousands of acres currently dedicated to parking. Suburban communities will either adapt to post-car transportation or become economic ghost towns. The American landscape itself will be transformed. An urban planner told me this week, "We're designing cities for a post-car future." The infrastructure investments we're making today assume that individual car ownership will be rare by 2040. The transformation will be more dramatic than most people can imagine. Download our free ebook, Avoid These 17 Cars in 2025, and protect yourself from the biggest automotive money traps. Link in the description below. The biggest car market crash in history is reshaping everything. The automotive age is over, the mobility age has begun, and the future belongs to those who saw it coming. Welcome to the new world.